Food and weight obsession can be exhausting. Losing weight, gaining weight, dieting, feeling like a failure because you missed a workout, binged, overate, or gained all the weight back. The cycle is endless and it can be maddening. But I'm here to say you can stop the mental madness. You can take back control of your food behaviors, but you have to face your fears, you have to ask for help, and make a change. I am Leslie M. Thornton, permanent weight loss coach from hpwl.co. This is Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss, and I know you can make this happen. On this podcast, you will hear how to stop the mental madness, love your body, trust your food decisions so you can create a life of happiness, freedom, and inner peace. Welcome to the Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss podcast. I'm your host, Leslie M. Thornton, and today we are with Sarah Alysse Bobo. I am going to read her bio here. Super excited for our conversation today. So Sarah Alysse Bobo is a stress management consultant that helps companies and individuals find solutions to optimize an unparalleled lifestyle. She's the founder and CEO of Live Well Enhance LLC, which informed out of a need for her clients to find balance in their lives. She branched into the corporate market to assist employees in creating out-of-the-box solutions and companies to develop incredible leadership events. She utilizes her BFA musical theater performance background to coach others how to be confident and understand the connection between the brain and body. Spanning over 15 years, Sarah has collected an abundance of certifications from Integrative Institute of Nutrition, Marathon Fitness Stott Pilates to National Academy of Sports Medicine. She's been featured on the nationally syndicated show The List, WGN Living Healthy, and WGN Around Town segment as a stress management expert. She's the host of the Stress Free Solutions podcast and has been promoted on Us Weekly, BuzzFeed, Business Insider, Yahoo Finance, Authority, Brains Magazine, Canvas Rebel, LA Wire, The Chicago Journal, US Reporter, and various podcasts, including ours now. And it was great to be on yours recently as well. So Sarah, welcome to the Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss podcast. Thanks for being here.
Leslie, thank you so much for having me. This is definitely making my day today. So I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, it's so great. And I know our conversation is going to be rich. When I was on your podcast, I just felt like everything was just so going with the flow. And we're just like in sync with all the different things. And just prior to us starting the podcast, as I always do, just asking for that intention and us getting present to the fact that you really would love people to have in their hearts of knowing that anything's possible, that if you believe it, you can have it, as well as, our emotional eating, just similarities and helping people kind of look at that in that real way. So, we're totally in alignment and excited for people to have you here. Yeah. So as always, I would love to start out by, maybe, and I don't know if we should start with emotional eating, maybe, if you're open to that, of just like your experience with it and how you help yourself and other people with it.
Yeah. So it's interesting because growing up, I noticed that one of my parents was an emotional eater. My father was an emotional eater, but I didn't really understand 100% until I got to college and I caught myself doing everything that he used to do. And, whether that was putting myself in a different room and eating, or that was me binging and then kind of hiding the evidence. And I started to really despise myself. And I was at that point where I needed to make a decision, like, can I heal from this, or am I just going to choose to continue to hide my feelings? Because I was a musical theater major, and for anyone to know that I was eating unhealthily, it was a no-no, and I didn't want my teachers to say anything to me. So
and if I could just pause on that a little bit of, I'm curious because it took me a long time to realize that it was me hiding my emotions. That was why, and what was going on with my constant struggle with food, body, and weight. Did you know that right off the bat, or did it take some time for you to realize that?
It took me It took me therapy. And
Mhm.
honestly, after my dad passed away, I figured it out. So it literally took me 7 years or 8 years after college to recognize, like, whoa, I had this issue growing up. I saw it, and then I saw it in college. I was living it, and I didn't really deal with it then. So it just kind of got worse, and I just accepted it for what it was and kind of would make jokes about it or excuses. And then I went to the Integrative Institute of Nutrition to get more in touch with myself. And I discovered so much. And then with therapy, along with all of the education, I realized that my emotions, I kept on pushing them down and I was eating my feelings. And, you don't hear that as often uh, for women. You usually hear from from a client standpoint, they have told me that it was something that they shared constantly, or they were a talker and they did seek emotional help. But a lot of the times, because I was an only child, I didn't have other people to talk to other than my parents. And I didn't want to just add another thing to their list. So I just hid and pushed all my feelings down. And it was other things too that came up for me during that time.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing just the journey that it often is. And I know I shared on your podcast and I've shared a bunch of times about the metaphor of you're swimming and life is good and then something hard happens and what's there to catch you and help with your emotions. The first thing is usually food because it's just readily available and it actually helps. And but then we get the negative feedback. And obviously you are in an industry where body image matters and right, you're using
Mhm.
your body to do your art and your work. So how young did you start that?
It was only in college that I started doing that. I think because I had really positive parents growing up, they never they would never really say anything bad about body image, maybe like a off the cuff thing, but who doesn't, honestly, in this age? So I discovered, though, quite quickly that in college, being constantly around it and not having, my resources from back home, people who I grew up with, it was a lot more challenging. And over time, I developed new friendships and was able to help me, but in other capacities, not with the emotional eating.
Yeah, I know for myself, even as a child of, there's four of us, I still took on like I don't want to burden anybody with sharing my problems. And I think I also learned by maybe testing the waters a little bit and sharing about some emotional things and getting, not helpful feedback. They were doing what they
Mm,
could, but it just didn't actually help to move the emotions when I did not know how to move them myself. And so I think I just learned to, turn it off and keep it inside but that energy needs to go somewhere. And so
mhm,
the food can quickly kind of be the place for the soothing.
mhm,
And I know for so many people, regardless of age, actually being concerned about what other people think and being afraid that if you actually start to share these things, either you'll be a burden or they won't understand or you get the feedback that so many people would give of like, oh well, I just tried this diet, you should try this, or oh
yes.
I should.
Oh my
And it
God.
always drove me absolutely insane. I get so upset. You
Mhm.
sounds like you had a
Yes.
similar experience.
I more so I've seen it done to my clients. They're in such a great place, and then all of a sudden someone's like, "Oh, well, have you thought of doing this?" And then they start to question everything they're doing because they're like, "Oh, maybe I can get off a few extra pounds." But they've made so many behavioral changes or mindset shifts that they're doing great, but when someone that you love says something, it's can be like such it can be devastating.
Yeah. And how do you support your clients when that happens?
Similar to what you were talking about in your episode, it's like asking those questions and getting, deeper into the what and the why. And when they start to ask themselves why they're wanting to try this new idea, it's almost like they want to be closer to their friends. They
Mm.
won't, if their friend did it, oh, this is a bonding thing that we can share together. So I found that interesting, and that's come up quite often, actually. And then the other thing was just a sense of shame
Mm.
and feeling like, ashamed of where they still are, and just digging up a lot of trauma, and that's usually from their previous, um, like when they were kids, or
Mhm.
habits that they developed in college. So
That's really
it's
interesting. Yeah, I love that you asked that question. Why the connection of like almost like the fear of missing out, but I could also see and so much of, if we've been dieting a long time has been, you do it with somebody else. And so maybe our bodies and minds remember, and I, as I kind of follow that thread, would think, not doing it could lead to that shame, or I should be doing it, or that self
Mhm.
hatred for fear of, yeah, being left out or being abandoned
Yeah.
or miss at self later when you see your friend get thin and you're like, oh, if I just started when they did,
Yep.
that I hear that a lot.
I don't know if this is something that's come up for you and your clients, the Ozempic craze.
Yeah.
And that has been probably the most heartbreaking, because just knowing about gut health and what's actually going on in their body, and how this is a drug for diabetics, it's not really a weight loss drug for a reason. It's been scary. And I feel like that's another bandwagon kind of regiment, if you will, that people are now doing. And it's not just celebrities anymore. It's out in the public because they got smart, and we got almost privy to it now as health and hypnosis coaches. But it's really challenging. I don't know how they're going to solve that.
I know. I really see it so much. I would say at least 85% of people I talk to now are on it. We're on it. Some of my clients even ended up hospitalized being on it.
Oh, wow.
Um, yep, just major yeah, GI upsets that would happen and different inflammations and flare-ups and a lot of people not losing weight with it even though and they're so frustrated about but we don't know the long-term side effects and oh it's just really it just shows how desperate and I have compassion for it because I've been that desperate before. That's
Right.
where I found hypnosis. And I just really care about raising the awareness about let's understand why. Like, you don't need to make yourself wrong for, considering it. Of course you are if you're feeling desperate, but why, what if we actually go into the emotionality that's underneath the desperation and that's really where the axis is. And we can't avoid doing the inner work no matter what.
Mhm.
But I do have clients, they're like, do I need to get off it in order to do this program? It's like, listen, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna make that decision. It's up to you. The way I kind of help them to look at it is like if you go to a therapist and they prescribed you anxiety medication or depression, they would probably say you also need to go for therapy simultaneously because we don't
Mm,
want you to stay on this forever.
yes.
So they know for sure, 100% sure that once you're off these medications that you gain all the weight back.
Yes.
And to me, that was always very terrifying with anything, if it was a supplement or a cleanse or something that I was doing was like, I'd be like, oh, even when I got down to my lowest weight, and thinking I found the answer, the amount of panic and anxiety that got added to my plate because I was like, oh, but what if this doesn't, what happens when I lose it? Is
Yeah.
so real, and it honestly put me back at least 100 spots than if I just actually started to do the real work first. So,
Mhm.
if someone listening hasn't started yet, I would really say just be wise about it, listen to
Mhm.
what else is possible in what we're saying because, even if you lose the weight and the cravings go away, it does not mean like the mental and emotional panic and fear and anxiety does not. And the behaviors don't change once the medication is off. So,
Right.
yeah, it's an interesting time with that for sure.
Hmm.
So, and are you seeing your clients on it? How do you advise them? What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
I mean, and that's this thing. It's like if your doctor is saying that you're in need of it, I just always ask them, like, do you have a course of action to get off of it? Because that's
Nice.
also how I know if the doctor is a honest doctor or a misleading doctor. And most of the time, the doctors are trying to get them off, which is great. They're like, we don't want this for you forever because of the GI issues they're finding.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that. Do you have a course of action for getting off it? And if that actually is a plan that they have for themselves, or if they're just riding on the wave and saying whatever I need and I'll deal with the rest of it later. It's, yeah, not,
Yeah.
you got to really equip yourself with all the things that you're needing. So I love that. When you were healing through this journey for yourself, what were some of the things that were most helpful to you?
I needed to find other ways to release energy and emotion. So, calling my friends, chatting with them about things that were bothering me always helped. And still seeing a therapist kind of to talk about with my dad passing in 2016, that was really important. And then I was doing workouts, like not super intense workouts. I just wanted to get stronger. So I actually invested in a NASM, National Academy of Sports Medicine, so that I can get stronger and teach my clients how to do so. And then I started getting more into mindset practices. I always was interested, but a little uneasy because I always saw myself kind of as a black and white trainer. And the gray area kind of frightens me. So I started to do more spiritual connection, and I would do follow your gut workshops and work with companies on improvisation, taking some of my past experience as a performer and put it into the workforce to get people to communicate more. So all of my trainings and everything is now, and what actually helped me was communication, movement, and then soulful spirit healing.
Mm, yes, which I love that you say solutions because it's just awesome.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I love that those three things specifically, with the movement, the spirituality, as well as what was the last thing?
The movement, the spirituality. Oh my gosh,
Oh,
what
communication,
communication
which is
is so
huge.
important.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
communication is huge. So I just want to kind of double click on that. It's just as women, especially, we oftentimes aren't communicating exactly what we want to say because maybe we had a bad experience or we lost, a friendship in middle school because we said the wrong thing and some girl got livid at us. And that happened to me, and then
Yeah.
so we shut down and then we don't use our voice. But communication is literally energy. And
Mhm.
when you have something to say and you're not saying it, or you're scared that you're not going to say it the right way, or it's going to be taken the wrong way, like it just stays in the body.
Yeah.
And that energy still needs to move out somehow. So that food, whatever it is, the comfort food is something that can. And what got scary for me on my journey was when the food actually stopped working. It was like I
Mhm.
was still using it, but it stopped working. And then I, started drinking a little bit more alcohol. And then it was like, and
Yep.
then I remember one day I drank like 10 light beers. And I was like, I'm still not feeling why I wanted to drink this. And then I was like, okay, this is an issue because I could see how people like go into harder and harder drugs when your
Mhm.
body is not experiencing this anymore. And then I really believe that I was divinely led to someone who didn't drink alcohol when I studied abroad in Mexico and forced me to ask those deeper questions because he was asking me, like, what do you like to do for fun? And outside of playing drinking games at age 21 and partying, like, I didn't know the answer. And I was like,
Yeah.
not okay with that. So then, I chose to not drink and to discover what made me so happy and excited without needing any kind of substance. And one was definitely dancing. I would just, no
Nice.
matter what, like if there was good music, I could dance, and still to this day, like no alcohol necessary. But I know there's still people in my family that they wouldn't ever imagine going out to a club without alcohol. Like I
Yeah.
still watch people immediately as they walk into a bar, like immediately just walk up to the bar and order a drink. And to me, it's just like, do you guys know you don't have to order a drink when you come in here? Like you could just walk in and go back to the music, which is kind of fun, but it's just so
Totally.
habitual. It's just
Hmm.
so habitual.
Yeah, let's get loose. Let's get onto the dance floor. Totally. Hmm.
Yep. Yep. And so just and forcing myself to get out of my comfort zone and face
Yeah.
some of those fears of what other people were going to think about me. I also joined a meditation group, and there was a circle at the end of the meditation, and people were just like really openly sharing whatever was going on very personal in their life. And like I was just stunned. Like but my body loved it. Like, it was like, "Oh my god, this level of safety." So then I kind of, since that was the culture, was like, "Let me experiment with sharing a little bit more personal stuff," and finding that it actually made connections way better and deeper, and people came more. And, so anyone listening, it's just these are just some, yeah, ways to really. And I love talking about how the opposite of addiction is connection. I learned
Mm-hmm.
that at some point on my path, and it's just like you were saying, when you started talking and talking to your friends, and just so communication is so much, and it's a never-ending journey of getting better at it. I still am getting better at it all the time, and like you must get good at communication in order to live a
Totally.
healthy, happy life.
It's so interesting though that you say that with, the need. I feel sometimes there was a need for me in the past for business networking to drink. And when I got pregnant, there's no drink. I was like, I'm not gonna have a glass of red wine. I know even some of my friends were like, oh, I'll do one glass of red wine in the third trimester. And I was like, I just don't want to. I
Mm-mm.
had no interest. And when I went to this big conference, it was the very first time that I didn't have one lick of alcohol. And like of course, I had been to conferences or a networking event where I didn't drink, but it was like a 4-day event, and it's a lot of new people, and you're trying to keep your energy up. And I was just like, I'm just gonna hydrate and have tea, maybe a cup of coffee, whatever. And I made the most genuine connections there because I got to just be myself. And
Yeah.
what was cool was my husband and I were also celebrating our 1 year anniversary
Mm.
of being married. And when he flew in, he was just like, you just seem so light and excited. And we just went to a nice restaurant, and again, no alcohol. And it was just like was such a great bonding experience, and talking about all the exciting things that have happened and all the great things that were to come with our little girl now here 7 months later.
Mm.
And yeah, it's amazing when you can just though take that step back wherever you are in your life and just, see what's in front of you, because you
Mm.
don't have every distraction around you or the need to drink or eat.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right. And what we're actually avoiding or missing out on because of that mental kind of fixation. And yeah, I have lots of clients. Well, one particular I'm thinking of, and she actually is very emotional about thinking about letting go of the alcohol. And I know for many people, whether that's food or alcohol or whatever is your, vice. And I also have compassion for that. I tell my clients, like, I'm not going to tell you you can't have it. And I believe that anything that we're super attached to and literally terrified of what's going to happen if we don't have it is an opportunity for us to really heal and grow. And so it's not my prerogative whether you keep drinking or not. It's my prerogative to dig deeper into like, what are you scared is going to happen if you couldn't, if you can't have the drink, or if you go to the party and say no to the alcohol, and like there's such richness if you just use it as right. And then sometimes as you're digging down and kind of looking at it, you do get a little less attached, and then you might organically actually feel like I actually want to try not or whatever. So I'm really big on just like being with yourself wherever you're at, not feeling guilty or shameful or whatever. But when I gave up alcohol, I gave it up several times. First time was in 2010 when I met that person. And that was just a choice. And I think it was like a year and a half I didn't. And it was just like such a rich year of self discovery. And my life definitely changed in huge ways. And then the second time was actually when I was following my super strict food addiction program. And I, wanted to actually lose the weight and whatever. So that was actually my reason for letting it go. But the fear of actually going to these social events, because I think you mentioned before about the energy. I think so much is like, oh my God, a 4-day event where I have to be on all the time. Like we associate our ability to keep going with having a drink. And I feel like what we're really addicted to is like the energy and also trying to avoid the fear of losing it and not being able
Mhm.
to show up and function and do everything that you have to be doing. Um, and same thing, like I found like I actually got more energy. I actually would dance longer than my friends out at night.
Yeah.
Like, I was a digital nomad for 2 years, and I was with all these other, obviously, digital nomads that were in the community with me, and most of them drank but I was out with them like every single place and every single dance party and and they were like amazed, like, how are you? I'm like having more fun than anybody. Um, and I just want to contrast that for people listening. Like I was on the other end of the spectrum. Like I grew up in a family where there was like thinking of not drinking was absolutely absurd. Like still to this day, like what? I think I got them out of that a little bit because they saw me with years of not and got used to it. And now, my sister's fiance doesn't drink. So I think they're more open to it now, but completely foreign.
Wow.
And I remember as a, 20-year-old at a family event, like sneaking more gin into my cup and, really, on my, what it was like 18th birthday or something, I snuck out and went to Dunkin' Donuts, like coffee shop near me and got like a sweet drink. And then I like put, rum in it when I got home and drank it by myself. Like I was on like a teeter totter of like, which way is this girl gonna go? So
Yeah.
just want people to really get that, and even if it's not speaking to you, to let it go. Like there is still so much to by just exploring whatever the addiction is or whatever feels like an addiction. And I'd also try to rationalize with myself and be like, well, I don't have an addiction because this would be happening and that would be happening. But that's also like a red flag because my belief is, if you feel like you have an addiction issue, if you feel a little bit out of control, then I think that you do.
Hmm.
Um, and just to, yeah, take seriously wherever the attachment is for you and look at it because again, it can be your biggest gift on the other side, no matter what the attachment is.
Mm, truth.
So appreciate your sharing your experience with that and congrats on being a new mom.
Thank you.
I hope to be one in my not so long way future. So I'll be, yeah. I'm more gravitating towards new moms now because I'm like, okay, that's the next
Next
venture.
venture. It's
Yeah.
fun. It's
Mhm.
beautiful. I didn't know how much I would enjoy it, but I absolutely adore it. It's so much fun. And like I said, she's 7 months today. And I'm like, I just remember the very first time seeing her and just, it's so wild. It's just wild.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I'm like almost there. My sister just had a baby, so I just became an aunt for the first time, and like just being with her, like all my maternal instincts, I feel like really kicked on. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, I would like to have one of these.
Yes.
And trust the process.
Yes.
So what's your I know you coach on more than just, eating stuff. Like what do you have a favorite thing that you love coaching clients with, or what do you primarily do with clients?
Yeah. So I think this communication piece has been really resonating since kind of, I'd say 2022. I've really been proactive about it. And it's that idea that life is full of improvisation, that we don't have to stick to one thing. We can always try something new, because then there's going to be more opportunities to do really cool stuff. And I really have them focus in on, you know, what's activities that they prefer to do if they didn't have their job, like what brings them joy. And, you know, it could be drawing, it could be writing music, it could be simply like, I want to become a runner. And we'll go and do the hard things. And why improv is cool is because it's this idea of yes and. So that
Mhm.
you're just continuing, you know. So if someone were to invite you to a running group, you would yes and it. Yes, and I would also like to invite you to, you know, my running group. Or yes, and I actually want to learn more how to um shave off like 10 seconds of my time, and I know you're really good at it. Like it's just that helping nature, but also being okay with saying, and I need support. So
Mm. I
yeah,
love that so much. So I took an improv class in college,
nice.
and I use it in my coaching. I just use I have a stand-up comedian in my program right now, and he was worried about going on a trip and what were other people, what if somebody said something that, triggered me and got me upset. And I was just like, well, you're trained in, performance. I was like, what's the number one rule of improv? And he was like, yes, and I was like, you got it. I learned it of just, you just always say yes to whatever is coming in.
Mhm.
And it literally is an emotional mastery hack with and just communication in life, like to receive whatever is coming into you with a yes first,
Yeah,
is such a superpower. So I love that are using that as well. And even with boundary setting of, even though you're not saying the word yes with people, but it's just like, oh, I really appreciate your caring about my health so much. That
yeah,
feels nice. And I want to let you know that I'm, feeling really good about what I'm up to with my health. Like, would it be okay if we talked about something else? Like, it's a
yeah,
diversion, but it's like you're following this wave flow that is respecting, where someone else might be coming from, that has them say what they're saying, that still, yes, it might emotionally hurt you. And, whatever our triggers are, it's just showing us more of where we're still, get to heal. Um,
yeah.
and knowing that it's really nothing personal when people are saying that. Go ahead. There's
It
something.
teaches people like how to also gain emotional resilience, I think, too.
Hmm.
And I think that's what I've discovered from getting connected with my musical theater background, because I did push the musical theater background away for many years. I started doing like one woman shows and getting back into it after my dad passed. But for a long time, I was like, I don't want to perform. It just doesn't feel right. And then it was when I found like new ways of being creative and letting my heart like expand more by writing and also creating with friends. I gained so much. And yeah, I felt like I cultivated this resilience in me that was like, you know what, whatever in the past happened. I can still do what I want, but it just has to be in my way. So
Amazing. It's like self-forgiveness, connection with self, using different ways that bring you joy to connect with yourself and release emotionality. Like it's
yeah.
all just such a beautiful dance. I love that you, yeah, are creating that. And again, I just feel like we're so in sync in so many ways, and
Yeah.
it's just incredible. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's just really the key. And I have clients that are, high performers and anxiety and this and that. And even yesterday, my one client was like, tomorrow I want to work on just getting really hyper focused and sticking to my plan. And that's great. Happy to work with somebody on that. But what I started her out with was that it's actually a thing that when you plan what makes you happy first.
Mhm.
So she was like, she really wants Christmas to be a certain way with her family, and she wants to do all the Christmas things this year. And hot cocoa and ice skating and this and that and movie night and da 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 da. And oftentimes we take those things that like our heart really, really is longing for, and we say like, oh, well, I'll give myself that after I do what's necessary and the things that are more important. But then we end up procrastinating on all those things. And then you get neither. You get nothing done. And then your Christmas ends up you working and not doing those things. So we kind of reverse engineer it. And it's like, okay, we're going to plan Christmas first. We're going to get excited about that. Any other things like even day to day, like yoga, or they, want to work out, or they want to, it's like, great, let's plan the fun stuff first, and
Yeah.
then watch that all the to-do list stuff gets done a lot easier when you actually say yes to bringing joyful activities into your life.
Mm-hmm.
Just really how energy works. But I love it about the emotional resilience. I had a previous boyfriend, I've talked about this on the podcast before, that happened to one day like call me up and say like, oh, I was just looking at photos of us and it looks like you've put on a bunch of weight in the last several months. And it was prior to my
Oh.
exactly, it's prior to my doing my work. And I, for the first time ever, was so mad that I couldn't talk like for like several days. Luckily, I had done enough work on myself to recognize that, like, that is just showing me how huge of a trigger that this is for me. He's not my boyfriend anymore. Needless to say, anyway, she wasn't the right match, but it's still so for anybody that like gets concerned about, judgments or what somebody's going to say. First of all, our unconscious mind, one of its functionalities is it takes everything personally. So you taking it personally when people are saying or doing or acting a certain way is exactly what happens in our body automatically. And if we can get that whatever somebody is saying says more about themselves than it does about you. So, for example, if someone's commenting on how you're eating or their weight, that means they're constantly thinking about their eating and their weight, and they probably need to be doing some healing work around this as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, so, and once we can also get that people, even though they may not communicate very eloquently things, that they do when they are saying kind of silly, maybe stupid stuff that's not kind, that oftentimes they are trying to help and trying to come from a good place. Sometimes there's not nice people that actually aren't, and we would not want those people necessarily to be in our lives. But
Right.
for example, if someone's like, oh, you look like you gained a little bit of weight, right? It's just like, okay, maybe they're actually concerned or they're worried about me, or maybe they know like whatever, they have their own projections about this. So if you can train the brain to actually first just see like what is the good that they might actually be intending for me by making this comment. And that's where it comes to be like, oh, I really appreciate your caring about my health, because then it helps that person feel seen because they didn't say that, but you said it for them. They're like, oh, I do care about her health, and it's like, I want to let you know that I'm good in that area. It's like, and that
Yeah.
helps them feel safe to be like, I got this, which so often as lifetime dieters, you have been telling and training the world that you don't got this because you've been
Mm-hmm.
sharing with them your struggles for sometimes decades and decades. So it's like, I got this. So now they feel safe to know, hey, she's got this. And then it's like, can we change the topic?
Yeah.
It just really, really works well. And so again, just bringing back to that communication. And then that helps you to not bottle it up. So you're not going home and eating all night long because they made a comment about your weight and you didn't say anything about it. Um, and it also can help to retrain people to know how not to be with you anymore, which can take a little bit of time, but it's such a worthwhile thing to master because otherwise we're just feeling bad all the time internally,
Yeah.
which just leads to just negative behavior. So, something else I'm curious if you studied with all of your stuff is, was talking to my client the other day and he was talking about how he had a heart attack in the past and, was overweight and all that kind of stuff. And something that really gets me in my time working as a nurse, I saw that a lot of times my heart patients, they had this way of about them where it was like there's anger underneath the surface.
Mm,
Like they had this angry kind of demeanor, like they were just kind of like agitated baseline. And anger is associated with heart issues. And then my diabetes patients, were a lot of times depressed and kind of sad. And sadness, like when we're sad, like a lot of times we want to gravitate towards sugar. And so it's like our
yeah.
medical system is like, oh, we got to fix by changing the way you're eating for the heart disease, and you got to stop eating sweets for the depression. But like if we actually look at it, like underneath that, it's like, what if we actually worked on the anger issues that have been, and so they're like, oh, in my family, it's passed down heart issues. But it's like, has your family always kind of bottled up anger? Has
Mm,
your family always bottled up sadness? And even as I'm saying this, you're talking about like your family and whatever. It's just like
yeah.
you say, like, oh, my family were emotional eaters, but it's like, oh, so then my family never had a healthy relationship with emotion. So let me not try to just fix the food habits, but let me work on what my family
Yeah.
never was good at emotionally.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And I know normally don't talk about this. So I'm going to like just approach it because obviously I don't want my family to be upset, but like my extended family during the time when my dad was sick, like there was a lot of sadness and hurt during that time. And a lot of the time, and I found this with my other clients too, it's these times of mourning can bring such sadness and anger and all sorts of things. But for me personally, as I noticed then too, how kind of depressed and sad a lot of my extended family and my father were. And I realized too, my dad didn't always talk about his emotions. He would ask me about my emotions, which I think is interesting. Growing up, he was like such an attentive father, especially for a girl dad. Like I just admire everything he did. But for himself, like I said, he would go into hiding and watch his shows and have a giant thing of like a Dairy Queen Blizzard, or then he would go and grab and like get the large or popcorn. Or when we would go to the movie theater, he would get the largest popcorn and he would get me a small one, like when we could have maybe shared. And there was a lot of kids in his family. And I think too, there was like, oh, I got to grab the food. I got to grab the food. And I don't even think they had food scarcity, but it was that idea of like getting attention or someone taking it from me and pushing the emotions through food. And it's just like, it's a lot. And there's a lot of family dynamics that goes into that communication piece, why maybe we're not moving. And again, that spiritual connection, being aware of what's going on.
Yeah, I really appreciate your sharing that. There's so
Yeah,
much that we can learn in looking at the family dynamics. And yeah, even with big families, it's just, how much attention was each child's able to be given. And obviously back not until, recent generations did, parents know about how to properly work with
exactly.
kids on emotions. Like that's kind of new, at least, so yeah, and then these things just get passed down. You're going to be unconscious to it. And I see also a lot with my clients, narcissism, covert narcissism in the family, which addiction follows that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
obviously abuse and these types of things. So um, yeah, it's just a worthy cause. And then the last piece I just want to touch on before we ask how people can find you, and obviously your podcast is great, is just the spirituality piece. So was there a point in time where you found that for yourself? What did that look like? How do you coach your clients with that?
Yeah. And, a lot of times, if my clients don't have a religion, like I never push anything with that. But for me, it was gaining mental clarity of what I needed by being quiet. And I would sit in these mental oasis spots. Like I would imagine myself on a beach reading, and I would just get myself into all the feelings, those senses. And that was the first time that I felt spiritually connected. And then after that, I actually went to religion, and I'm Jewish, and I found it so beautiful this past year to bring my daughter to temple with my husband and I for the first time and say the prayers that we grew up learning and just have this experience together. But I was using my mental oasis technique and kind of this sanctuary space, finding this quiet spot, and I just took it all in. And because I was able to get quiet before, I was able to accept parts of my religion that as a teenager or as a young adult, like I wasn't connecting to anymore. So that was really full circle moment for me.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. A lot of my clients, I'll just ask them, like, what is your faith? Do you have faith in anything?
Hmm.
Because I think just in general, when it comes to obviously food and any kind of addictive type of habit, to not have any belief that there's anything else could have us. It's a lot of fear, a lot
Yeah.
of, right? Because it's just like, oh my God, we're just tiny little nothing on this globe, just at risk to whatever at any time. And so if you don't have
Yeah.
any faith, I have a sister who she's a teacher and well educated. And so she questions everything as a little kid. I remember she was always asking like, why? And they gave her like a why book to like answer all her questions. So, and she was going through different hard times in her life and kind of talking to her about the faith, that she was just like, well, you can't prove that, and you can't prove that there's anything. It's just like, no, I can't prove that, but I can prove that people who are happier in life believe in something. And
Yeah.
I can prove for myself that my believing in anything, and there being any kind of higher purpose or power or anything, makes me happier and feel safer in my body. And I believe that if I feel happier and safer in my body, then I'm going to attract more happy, safe, and be healthier. So I am consciously choosing to have faith, even though I could go all the way down the rabbit hole and ask why and question it. But obviously that's up to everybody's, choice, but that's also true. So if we have a choice to choose being scared and, feeling like life has no point and, oh, there is actually a purpose that I just don't know and the mystery of life is awesome, like, which one would you rather choose, so but
Yeah.
can make the journey. I would not have anything that I have. And yeah, I grew up Catholic and then found science and was so into science. So got away from it and got away from church. And but now it was so important to me that as I start a family, that just having that as a foundation of when hard things happen, we can pray. And, is
Yeah.
huge. And so,
And like you said, that believing in something, it could be believing in the universe for people. There's beautiful things all around us. We just have to open our eyes to that opportunity.
100%. So thank you so much for being here. I could talk to you all day. I don't even know how much this time
Same.
has already passed by. So how can people find you? Anything that you're, offering right now? Would love to
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah. So right now I am offering just a nice little stress-free kind of habits that you can do for yourself. And you just can go to, livewelenhanceyou.com/mini dash course. And it's just little tips every day on how to reduce your stress. And other than that, you can connect with me on social media. I'm on Instagram at Sarah Alysse Coaching, or you can find me on LinkedIn at Sarah Alysse Bobo. So those are the two places that are best where I will connect. And then I would say listen to Stress Free Solutions because Leslie's going to be on there and it's going
Oh,
to be amazing. I really enjoyed our conversation because like you said, we have, feel like we have the same vibration and are trying to help people on a deeper level and understanding what's actually going on. So I appreciate what you do. And I'm so thankful for you having me on today.
yeah. Thank you so much. And then just one more time, where can people get those stress-free habits?
Yeah. So
Mhm.
it's livewelenhanceyou.com/mini dash course.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I know people are going to want to have that. Thanks for offering that gift.
No
Thank you so
problem.
much for being here. And until the next episode, we will see you for the next one. If you are serious about taking action on your struggle with food, body, and weight, then this is for you. Go ahead and text the word hypnosis to 855-BE-ALIVE. That's 855-232-5483. Immediately after texting that number, you will get access to our free training that will tell you why you can't figure the food, body, and weight thing out, why you can't keep weight off even after you've been successful in the past, and how to actually overcome it, including a mini hypnosis session at the end. Don't miss out. Text the word hypnosis to 855-BE-ALIVE. That's 855-232-5483.